Desert wind didn't just blow, it howled. Swept across the broken landscape like something alive, dragging sand through abandoned trenches and cracked rock formations that had seen too many battles already. The sky above was a dull, burning orange, as if the sun itself was watching in silence. Captain Elena Carter stood at the edge of the deployment zone, motionless. Behind her, engines roared as the last transport helicopters lifted away into the sky, shrinking into distant dots before disappearing beyond the horizon. That sound, heavy rotors fading into nothing, marked the moment they were officially alone. No reinforcements. No easy escape. Just them. Lena slowly adjusted the strap of her tactical vest, her eyes scanning the terrain ahead. The mission area stretched like a dead wound, rock canyons, narrow passes, and deep shadows that looked too perfect to be natural. Everything about it felt wrong. Not dangerous in an obvious way, but in a way that whispered something is waiting. A few steps behind her, the squad gathered. Sergeant Miller cracked his neck, checking his rifle for the third time in 2 minutes. Private Harris avoided eye contact with everyone. Specialist Duval kept tagging his radio even though it had already been confirmed functional. They were nervous. Not because they were inexperienced, but because of who was leading them. Elena Carter. Name alone was enough to split opinions in half. Briefing rooms, some called her the rising star of tactical command. Others called her a risk the Army couldn't afford. Beyond to command a mission like this, they said. Too unpredictable. Too emotional under pressure. Those people had never seen what she had done in Canna Ridge, or how she had extracted an entire squad from a collapsing combat zone without losing a single soldier. They didn't know what she was capable of when the world stopped making sense. Still, doubt had a way of following her. Even here? Even now? Captain, Miller said quietly, stepping closer. We're crossing into hostile territory in under 3 minutes. You sure about this route? Lena didn't look at him immediately. Her eyes stayed fixed on the canyon ahead. Sure, she replied calmly. That was all she ever gave. No long explanations. No emotional reassurance. Just certainty. But Miller wasn't convinced. He lowered his voice. Man said that POW was the fastest, not the safest. Lena finally turned her head slightly. That's why I chose it. Pause. No one responded, because no one knew if that was confidence or something closer to instinct. Then she raised her hand. Move out. Squad immediately shifted into formation. Boots hit sand in synchronized rhythm as they entered the canyon path. Walls rose higher the deeper they went, towering cliffs of jagged rock that blocked most of the sunlight. Shadows stretched across the ground like long fingers, twisting with every step. The silence grew heavier. Too heavy? Lena's pace slowed slightly. Eyes tracked every angle, upper ridges, narrow cracks, debris piles that didn't match natural erosion patterns. Something had been placed here. Removed recently. He raised her fist. Squad stopped instantly. Even breathing felt loud. Hold position, she said softly. Miller frowned. What is it? Lena didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped forward a few paces alone, scanning the ridge above them. The wind shifted and trickled down from above, but not naturally. It was disturbed. Her jaw tightened slightly. Everyone fell back 2 steps. Squad obeyed, confusion rising. Phil whispered, Captain, what are we? Sound cut him off. Click. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a small mechanical sound, like metal being set in place. Lena froze. Her eyes locked upward. Time didn't slow, it sharpened. Everything became clear in a single terrifying second. The ridge line above them wasn't empty. It was occupied. Camouflage positions blended into the rocks so perfectly they were invisible until movement betrayed them. Weapon barrels barely visible through stone gaps. Heat signatures hidden behind reflective cover plates. This wasn't a patrol zone. It was a kill box. Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. Ambush. And then the canyon erupted. And fire shattered the silence like glass breaking across steel. Bullets slammed in a rock where they had just been standing seconds earlier. The squad scattered instantly, diving behind boulders, scrambling for cover as dust exploded into the air. Contact front, Miller shouted, returning fire immediately. But it was already too late to call it contact. They were surrounded. From above the cliffs, any fighters opened fire in coordinated bursts. From side crevices, hidden shooters revealed themselves. Even behind them, distant movement suggested escape routes had already been blocked. This wasn't a random attack. It was planned. Designed. Perfectly timed. Elena pressed herself against a rock slab as rounds chipped stone inches from her helmet. Her breathing stayed steady, but her eyes were calculating at speed no one else could match. Captain, Miller yelled through the chaos, we're pinned. We need extraction now. Elena grabbed her radio. Static. She switched channels. Nothing. Again. Only static. Her expression didn't change, but something inside her locked into place. Comms are jammed, Duval confirmed urgently. We're cut off. A heavy silence followed that statement, even in the middle of gunfire. Because everyone understood what that meant. No backup. No air support. No rescue. Just a canyon turning into a grave. Private Harris fired blindly over cover, panic creeping into his voice. We're sitting ducks out here. Another explosion hit nearby rock, shaking the ground. Elena closed her eyes for half a second. Not fear. Processing. She replayed the terrain in her mind like a map. Every angle, every slope, every shadow. Then she opened her eyes. And something changed. Her voice cut through the chaos, sharp, controlled. Stop firing randomly. Miller blinked. What? Elena shifted slightly, watching enemy movement patterns across the ridge. They're not scattered, she said. They're coordinated. That means there's a control point. Another burst of gunfire hit nearby. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pointed toward a narrow split in the canyon ahead. There. Miller frowned. That's deeper into the kill zone. Elena's tone dropped colder. They're hurting us away from something, not toward it. A pause. Then she looked at them. And for the first time, they saw it, not just confidence. Clarity. We're not waiting for rescue, she said firmly. We're breaking their system. The squad stared at her like she had lost her mind. But Elena was already standing. Already loading her rifle. Already stepping forward into the gunfire. Follow me, she said. And without waiting for agreement, Captain Elena Carter walked straight into the storm. The moment Elena stepped forward, the battlefield seemed to react like it was alive. Gunfire intensified. Bullets snapped through the air with violent precision, slamming into stone inches from her boots. The canyon that once felt like a path now felt like a trap, tightening around them with every second. Behind her, hesitation spread through the squad like a virus. Miller shouted, "Captain, this is insane. We're walking deeper into their fire lanes." But Elena didn't turn back. She didn't even slow down. Because she already knew something the others didn't. Staying still meant death. And retreat was no longer an option. A sharp explosion erupted to their left, rock shards tearing through the air. Private Harris dropped instantly behind cover, breathing heavily. "We're boxed in," he yelled. "There's no exit." Elena raised her hand without looking back. "Keep moving." "Are you serious?" Duval snapped. "We're getting slaughtered out here." Elena finally stopped. Not because she was unsure, but because she needed them to understand something. She turned slightly, just enough for her voice to cut through the chaos. "If we stay where they expect us to stay," she said calmly, "we die where they expect us to die." Another burst of gunfire hit the canyon wall, echoing like thunder. Elena continued, "Right now they believe we're reacting, falling back, panicking." She pointed forward. "But we're not doing either." Miller shook his head in disbelief. "Then what are we doing?" Elena's eyes narrowed. "We're rewriting the battlefield." A silence followed that statement, brief, but heavy enough to feel like a break in reality. Then another explosion shattered the moment. Dust and smoke swallowed the air. Elena moved instantly. "Smoke grenades now." Duval hesitated for half a second. That was all it took. Elena grabbed one from his vest and threw it herself. A thick cloud exploded across the canyon floor, swallowing visibility in seconds. The world turned gray, confused, chaotic, blind. "Move," she ordered. And this time, the squad followed. They ran through smoke and collapsing visibility, footsteps scrambling over rock and debris. The enemy fire continued, but now it was uncertain, misaligned, slightly delayed. Because the targets were disappearing. Above them, enemy positions shifted. Elena noticed it immediately. "They're adjusting fire patterns," she muttered. "Good, that means they're tracking manually, not automated." Miller kept pace beside her. "Why does that matter?" Elena didn't hesitate. "It means there's a control point directing them." A sudden burst of bullets hit behind them, forcing the squad to duck. Elena stopped again, this time looking toward a narrow elevation point where rock formations formed a partial ridge. Her eyes locked onto it. "There," she said. Miller followed her gaze. "What is that?" Elena's voice dropped. "The brain." Another explosion rocked the ground. "They're not just ambushing us," she continued. "They're controlling every movement we make. That ridge is coordinating fire." Duval shook his head. "That's suicide to reach." Elena turned to him sharply. "So is staying here." A pause. Gunfire continued in the background, like the canyon itself was breathing war. Elena adjusted her grip on her rifle. "Listen carefully," she said. We break their control point, and this entire ambush collapses. Miller frowned, and if we do? Elena looked him dead in the eyes. Then we die slowly. Silence hit them again. This time, no one argued. Because there was no better option. Elena raised her hand. On my mark, move and smoke. Stay low, don't engage unless necessary. She paused, then added one more line, quieter but sharper than everything else. Stay alive long enough to win. And then, she moved first again. The squad followed. They pushed through the smoke cloud as enemy fire intensified above them. Bullets tore through stone, dust exploded, rocks shattered. The canyon turned into a collapsing battlefield of sound and chaos. But Elena wasn't reacting anymore. She was reading. Every shot, every angle, every movement. She noticed patterns others couldn't see. Enemy fire always paused for half a second before shifting direction. That pause meant communication. That meant coordination. That meant a command structure. And structures can be broken. Captain, Miller shouted, struggling to keep up, we're losing cover. Elena pointed ahead without looking back. 30 meters forward, rock formation split. What about it? That's where their blind zone starts. They reached it seconds later. And she was right. Gunfire dropped slightly in intensity, not gone, but less precise. Miller realized it instantly. They can't see us properly here. Elena nodded. Because we're inside their adjustment gap. But her expression didn't relax. Because she knew something worse was coming. Enemy forces were adapting. Above them, movement increased. More silhouettes appeared along the ridgeline. More weapons. More coordination. Miller saw it too. They're reinforcing, Captain, there's more of them coming in. Elena looked up slowly. The sky above the canyon ridge was now filled with hostile positions. It wasn't an ambush anymore. It was becoming an execution. For the first time, even the squad felt it. The weight of being completely surrounded. Private Harris whispered, "We can't win this." That sentence hung in the air longer than any bullet. Elena turned to him. Her voice was calm. Not soft. Not comforting. Just certain. We're not trying to win it the way they think we are. Another explosion rocked the canyon edge. Elena pointed toward the elevated ridge again. We're going to shut them down. Miller's eyes widened. That's their command point, it'll be heavily guarded. Elena's answer came instantly. Good. A pause. Then she added. That means it matters. She tightened her grip on her weapon. And for the first time, her squad saw it clearly. This wasn't fearlessness. It was decision-making under pressure, so sharp it felt unreal. Elena stepped forward into the smoke again. And the squad followed. Deeper into the kill zone. Straight toward the center of the storm. The climb began in silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind that comes right before something breaks. Elena led the way up the narrow ridge path, where the canyon walls tightened like a clenched fist. Every step was unstable, loose rock shifting under boots, dust sliding down like falling ash. Above them, the enemy positions were no longer guessing. They were waiting. A burst of gunfire slammed into the rock above Elena's head, sending fragments raining down. Move, move, Miller shouted from behind. But Elena didn't rush. Speed without control meant death here. She paused behind a jagged boulder, scanning upward through the smoke and dust drifting across the ridgeline. Her eyes locked onto something small. A pattern. Enemy fire wasn't random. It was layered. One group suppressed, one group tracked, one group corrected. 3 layers of coordination. That meant one thing. A central command node was controlling everything. Elena exhaled slowly. There, she whispered. Miller crawled beside her. What are you seeing now? Elena pointed through the haze. Fire rhythm breaks every 12 seconds. Miller frowned, so. That's communication timing, she replied. They're syncing updates. A distant explosion echoed through the canyon. Elena continued, That ridge structure up there, that's not just a firing line. It's a relay point. Duval, breathing heavily, leaned in. Relay for what? Elena's voice dropped. Control. A heavy silence followed that word. Because now everyone understood what that meant. If they didn't break it, the ambush would never end. It would continue until nothing was left moving. Another volley of gunfire forced them to press closer to the rock face. Miller's voice tightened. Captain, we're exposed if we keep climbing. Elena nodded once. Yes. A pause. Then she added, that's why we don't keep climbing normally. She reached into her vest and pulled out a compact smoke marker. Duval stared. What are you doing? Elena activated it. A thin stream of colored smoke shot upward into the air, drifting across the ridge face. Instantly, enemy fire shifted. Now, Elena said sharply, they're distracted. Miller blinked. You just marked your own position. Elena shook her head. I marked a false assumption. Before anyone could question it further, she moved. Fast. This time, not straight upward, but diagonally across a hidden ledge line she had spotted earlier. A path too narrow for standard movement, but perfect for bypassing a kill corridor. The squad followed quickly, scrambling across unstable stone as bullets snapped behind them. Rock shattered. Dust exploded. The canyon roared with constant violence. But Elena stayed focused. She was no longer reacting. She was mapping the enemy in real time. Every shot confirmed positioning. Every delay revealed communication structure. Every movement exposed weakness. Then she saw it. A gap. A blind seam in the ridge defenses where two enemy fire sectors overlapped imperfectly. A fracture in their coordination. Elena stopped abruptly. Miller almost collided into her. Why are we stopping? Elena pointed. There. Duval squinted through the dust. I don't see anything. Elena's voice sharpened. You don't see it because they don't want you to. She crouched slightly, scanning the structure above. That's their relay node, she said, and it's protected by overlapping fire zones. Miller looked up, so it's impossible to reach. Elena shook her head. No. A pause. Just expensive. That word hit differently. Because everyone understood what she meant. Getting there would cost something. Energy. Risk. Maybe lives. Another explosion rocked the ground beneath them, sending a shockwave through the ridge. Elena turned sharply. That's exactly why it works. She pointed toward the ridge again. They think pressure forces mistakes. Her eyes hardened. We use pressure to create direction. A beat. Then she raised her rifle. Listen carefully, we move in bursts. No stopping, no hesitation. If you fall behind, you crawl. If you get pinned, you don't freeze. She looked each of them in the eye. You keep moving until I say otherwise. A long silence followed. Even the gunfire seemed distant for a second. Then Miller nodded slowly. Understood. Elena turned and stepped forward into the storm again. The ascent became chaos. Elena moved first, fast bursts between cover points, using smoke bursts and terrain shadows to break enemy sightlines. The squad followed in staggered formation, pushing through fire that constantly tried to push them back down. Enemy shooters adjusted quickly. Too quickly. But Elena was already predicting their adjustments. Left flank adjusting, wait now, she muttered. A burst of enemy fire hit exactly where they would have been seconds earlier. Miller realized it mid-step. She's predicting them. Duval shouted, that's not possible. But it was happening. Elena wasn't guessing anymore. She was reading rhythm. The battlefield had patterns. And she had learned how to hear them. Finally, after what felt like forever, they reached a fractured rock platform overlooking a reinforced ridge structure. Elena dropped instantly behind cover. Below them, the canyon was a storm of coordinated fire. Above them, the source of it all, a fortified enemy command position hidden inside a natural rock formation, reinforced with metal plating and communication arrays. This was it. The brain. Miller's voice dropped. That's the control point. Elena nodded once. Yes. Duval swallowed hard. It's heavily guarded. Elena checked her magazine. I know. Another pause. Miller looked at her. What's the plan? Elena didn't answer immediately. She just stared at the structure. Watching. Calculating. Then she spoke quietly. We remove their ability to think. A beat. Miller frowned. What does that mean? Elena raised her rifle. It means no more coordination. She looked at them. And no more ambush. A long silence followed. Then, she stood and stepped toward the ridge edge, where the storm was waiting, and where the next moment, everything would change. The ridge wind cut harder at this height. It wasn't just cold, it was violent, like the mountain itself was trying to push them back down. Below, the canyon still burned with chaos. Gunfire echoed endlessly, but up here, everything felt sharper, closer, final. Elena crouched behind a fractured rock slab, watching the enemy command structure through drifting smoke. This was it. The control point. The brain of the entire ambush. Inside the reinforced rock formation, enemy operators moved between consoles and communication arrays, feeding real-time updates into the battlefield below. Every coordinated shot, every shift in enemy movement, it all traced back here. Miller whispered, barely audible, if we fail here, there's no second chance. Elena didn't look away. There won't be a second chance either way, she replied. That silence hit harder than any explosion. Duval checked his rifle again, his hands were shaking now. We're too exposed, they'll see us the moment we move. Elena nodded slowly. Yes. A pause. Then she added, that's why we don't move like soldiers. She reached into her vest and pulled a compact flash charge. Miller's eyes widened. Captain, that's too close to their structure. Elena cut him off. I know exactly how close it is. She turned slightly toward them. Listen carefully. When this detonates, their vision, coordination, and comms will break for a few seconds. That's our window. Miller frowned. A few seconds. Elena met his eyes. That's enough. No one spoke after that. Because somehow, they believed her. Below them, enemy patrols shifted position. Movement increased. The structure was preparing for something, maybe a final push, maybe a repositioning. They were unaware that their system was already being targeted. Elena raised her hand. 1 finger. 2 fingers. 3. Then dropped it. Now. The explosion didn't roar. It detonated reality. A blinding flash erupted against the ridge structure, swallowing the entrance in white light. The shockwave hit instantly, cracking rock and sending dust into the air like a collapsing sky. Inside the command post, screens flickered violently. Signals broke. Communications collapsed into static. Down in the canyon, enemy fire patterns faltered for the first time. Not stopped, but confused. Miller didn't wait. Go, go, he shouted. Elena was already moving. She didn't run down the obvious path. She dropped from the ridge edge onto a lower ledge, using momentum and terrain like she had done 100 times in simulations. But now it was real. Bullets snapped past her as the enemy reacted too late. Duval followed, sliding down rock, barely keeping balance. Inside the command structure, alarms began flashing. But it was already too late. Elena hit the entrance first. 2 guards turned. Too slow. She moved through them with precision, not aggression. 1 disarmed, 1 neutralized, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Miller and Duval followed seconds later. Inside, the control room was chaos. Operators shouted into dead radios. Screens flickered between broken feeds. Someone tried to restore command routing, but nothing responded. Their entire battlefield network was collapsing in real time. Elena walked straight to the central console. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. She simply observed. Then she pulled the main communication unit apart with a sharp motion. severing the core link. Instantly, the canyon below changed. Outside, enemy coordination broke like glass under pressure. Fire became uneven, then scattered, then uncertain. Miller looked out through a broken window slit and froze. "They're stopping," he said. Duval leaned beside him. "No, they're losing coordination." Below, enemy squads that once moved like a single machine now reacted independently. Confusion spread rapidly. Fire lanes overlapped incorrectly. Units hesitated. And hesitation in battle was fatal. Elena stepped back from the console. For a moment, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then, a distant rumble echoed through the canyon. Not gunfire. Not explosions. Movement. Enemy forces were retreating. Not all at once, but in fragments, broken and disorganized. Miller stared in disbelief. "It's collapsing." Duval whispered, "The entire ambush is falling apart." Elena exhaled slowly. But her expression didn't change. Because she knew something important. The battle wasn't over yet. Not until they left the canyon alive. Outside, enemy resistance was still active, but without coordination, it was no longer a trap. It was just chaos. Elena tapped her radio. This time, it crackled. Then a voice broke through. "Iron Dagger Unit, status report." Miller grabbed it instantly. "HQ, we're operational. Enemy control system has been destroyed." A pause on the line. Then, "Repeat that." Elena stepped forward. Her voice was calm. "Command structure is down. Ambush neutralized. We're moving to extraction." Another silence. Then urgency exploded through the radio. "Extraction inbound. Hold position." But Elena was already looking back toward the canyon. Because she could still hear distant fighting. Some squads were retreating. Some were still firing blindly. And some were still trying to hold the ridge. Miller noticed her expression. "Captain, we did it, it's over." Elena didn't respond immediately. Then she said quietly, "No." A pause. "It's not over until everyone gets out." She turned toward the exit. And for the first time in the entire mission, the battlefield wasn't chasing her. She was walking through what she had already broken. Outside, the canyon no longer felt like a death zone. It felt like something else entirely. A battlefield without a head. A system without control. A war machine that had finally been shut down. As extraction helicopters appeared in the distance, dust rising beneath their rotors, Miller looked at Elena. For a moment, he didn't see a captain. He didn't see a soldier. He saw something that didn't belong to fear anymore. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "what do we call what just happened?" Elena adjusted her gloves and looked at the collapsing battlefield one last time. "Survival," she said. A pause. Then she stepped forward. "And control." The helicopters descended. The storm ended. And somewhere across every radio channel, every command post, every intelligence report, a new name was already being writ into history. Not as a rumor. Not as a mistake. But as a fact. Captain Elena Carter. The soldier who didn't just survive the battlefield. She changed its outcome forever. Fire,